We've gathered a team from Tasmania's property, building and design industry to count down the state's top 10 architectural statements of the year.
Being one of the older established companies, and we believe we're a leader in the field, to actually be part of a process of working on a panel with other leaders in the field and possibly helping shape the future of architects is something that we find very worthwhile.
Our team is guided by local architects Rebecca Fullerton and Mike Vidal from 1+2 Architecture.
You've got builders, you've got people who are doing finance, you've got material suppliers. Now, all those contributions are really critical. So to ask their opinion and get a sense of what they see as of quality has been really great.
A lot of people don't understand other professions, and I think the more we can talk about our professions and the way we can engage the public and the industry in what we do, the better for all of us.
G'day guys.
Hello.
Hello Mike.
Welcome to Hatherley House.
Thank you. An amazing place you have here.
It's gorgeous. Do you want to take a tour?
Yes, please.
It's an 1832 property. It's one of the oldest in town, in Australia really. It's listed on the National Estate, and one of its key features is it's an Italianate building. We converted it actually back into a residence for our family, and we've added some beautiful new guest rooms that people can come and stay.
Let's go have a look. You've had to be really careful with how the old relates to the new. And how have you done that?
Yeah, it's one of the key things about working on a heritage site is that the new contemporary work must not take anything away from the heritage building or its values. So its integrity is not just intact, but enhanced.
How did you do that?
So from the old building, you can't see the new buildings, but there's a couple of old outbuildings here.
Yeah.
And I've followed the alignment, and I've done a similar scale building.
Yeah.
But when you get inside, that's when all the action happens.
Ah.
You see the cannon-shaped roofs with the moonlights,
Yeah.
and the big picture windows out into the tree canopies.
So Beck, we're in this contemporary space. We've got this large window facing the garden, and we're kind of looking from the new to the old. Can you tell us a bit about that?
These pavilions were specifically designed to provide privacy and seclusion right in the canopy of this amazing 150-year-old magnolia tree. We also have moon windows, so of a night time you can look up at the beautiful Tasmanian stars in the sky. The other one, they're just slightly different. So the other one's a little bit bolder, I think, in its design, a little bit more open as well. This one's very sort of secluded in the tree. So yeah, just that's sort of the yang to this yin.
What I find most successful about this project is the two new buildings sitting harmoniously in the garden setting, giving this historic property new life.
Number 9 was a favourite of Darren Voss from Tasmania's Commercial Builder of the Year, Voss Construction and Joinery.
As a builder, this project really caught my eye, and I was particularly interested in the use of the lightweight timber and the use of the CLT, which is the cross-laminated timber.
Some might say this is a triple B project. It's a bit bland, boxy, and dare I say it, a bit boring. But it's not. It's actually a highly complex project. Inveresk has a rich railway history, where the railway lines run along the length of the river and the buildings run parallel to each other. And right from the beginning, the architect tapped into this. So James, you had to please a lot of people in this project.
Yes, well, this is a very big facade that the people of Launceston are looking onto. And so we gave them this big timber screen.
Unpainted?
Unpainted, so it's natural timber, so it'll change over time and weather and age gracefully. So we broke it up with openings and made it interesting.
But tell us about this side of the screen.
Well, for the students experience a timber screen close up. It allows ventilation, cross-ventilation.
Yep.
It lets the light in. So it has these openings and you get glimpses of the city and the water as you walk past.
I like how you get a sense of the weather as well. Instead of just walking down a dumb corridor, we're actually really immersed
you can feel the breeze.
in the weather.
Yeah, you can feel the breeze.
Yeah, that's a really good thing.
It potentially could have been a large building, but it's been split into two to sort of reduce the scale because it's sitting right on the edge of the river there. And it's, I guess, one way to reduce the impact of such a, what could have been quite a large building.
So these are complete self-contained units. They're actually all suspended in space. They're actually a gap right around each module, and they're only connected by 8 rubber pads, which means that sound doesn't travel between the different units. So one's on either side and one's down below.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we stamp on the floor like that, they can't actually hear us.
Yeah, right. This courtyard sums up the project really well. We see the north face open up to the sun, the south face closed down, a sheltered space that echoes the railway history of this site. This project gives us more than we expect.
We've gathered some of Tasmania's property, building and design industry to count down the state's top 10 architectural statements for the year. Heading up the judging is Brett McKay from McKay Timber.
I think the architecture is very important. Right back to settlement times, we've got the architecture, but it's a matter of how you now blend the new and the old together. And it's what to next. It's how we can use our natural resources like our timber products, how we can actually do more sustainable, environmentally friendly building, and that's where the architects are so key.
Architecture is extremely important. You know, without architects, we don't push boundaries, we don't make things happen that are out of the norm, and we need more good architects.
Do you like our reception counter?
Oh, what a kick-ass cantilever that is.
It actually wasn't the first design. The first one came in way too expensive. So it's kind of a happy accident, actually. We found this beam and we decided to salvage it and use that.
Yeah, right. It's a gutsy statement that reflects the industry, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's strong and it's industrial and it's about the construction industry.
You're trying to add value to people's lives, not just provide a place where you're corralling people to work for you.
Yeah.
Recognising that people actually spend the bulk of their days, their lives, and their time actually in an office space.
Yeah.
You know, if you look around you and you look at the way we just started with a box, and we came creatively at that box to say, okay, how can we create a space that works?
And that's a great way to start, to have a space and say, if nothing was here, what would I insert, rather than what can I do with this? You've got the same form and structure, but some have got glass and some are open.
Yeah, that's right, Beck. We asked the staff what they wanted. Some of them wanted private offices and others didn't, so we responded accordingly. We worked really hard to get the acoustics right for the space. One of the measures we took was to do the perforated plywood ceiling, so behind there's insulation. There's also insulation on top of these offices, so as the noise bounces off the ceiling, it gets absorbed on those. And also we have these dividing walls, which have a product called Ortex on them.
We needed to design a building. It was a head office of an industrial services company, and it was really important that we didn't create an ivory tower. You look at the floor, there's no finishes on the floor, it's just what it is.
Yep.
You can walk in here in your work boots and it doesn't matter. The very best part of this whole project in the end was the feedback that we got from staff since they've been here, and one guy in particular said it's the best workplace he's been in 40 years.
Wow.
So it was just a fantastic outcome to create a place where people actually want to come and spend their days, and a place where they spend a big part of their life.
This project has taken Stornoway's values, turned them into a concept to produce a building. It really is a good example of an architect's ability to engage both the left and the right sides of the brain. And the most important thing about the end result is a happy workplace.
driving past the property for 34 years. One day I saw it for sale after a long lunch at Mona and I jumped on it.
So this is it. So you had two options, to keep it as a workshop or to go through town planning to change it into a residence. But you wanted to live here.
I've always wanted to live back into Battery Point, and by working within the guidelines and not triggering a town planning permit, which would have meant years in the process, literally years, I've been able to work within the boundaries and be lateral and achieve somewhere to live and somewhere to have my workshop.
So where do you live? Do you sleep in the car?
Well, Rebecca, it's a 1962 EJ Holden, and it's very comfortable sleeping in there.
Right.
Very comfortable. Bench seats. But I don't actually live in the car permanently. Come this way and I'll show you where I live.
Oh, this is cool. So you've kept the original brickwork of the old workshop, but you've introduced steel and timber.
Fundamentally, the hero is the existing building fabric. The new insertions of the steel. This is what I call, Rebecca, my 3.4 metre chaise lounge sofa.
So you can sit down here.
You can sit down there.
Look out the door.
And enjoy the warmth of the fire during winter. And then up here is the mezzanine bedroom. So the bedroom space is all within the existing roof profile.
And you've used rough sawn timber.
All these materials are Tasmanian oak, and I've deliberately chosen areas that are heavily distressed to pick up the vernacular of the space. Everyone who wanders into the space seems to think that structure has always been there, but it's a new insertion. I deliberately tried to keep it as natural as possible to complement the existing brick wall. Part of the design here, you're probably wondering what these timbers are about. They were actually chosen to reflect a James Bond go-go dancing cage, because I'm really inspired by 007 movies.
Okay, and you're a bit of a dancer too.
I'm seriously good at dancing.
What are your plans for the workshop?
A vision came to me recently. I'm going to whack a serious coffee machine in there. We're going to have coffee, we're going to have art events, exhibitions, anything else that has a creative bent.
Great.
A workshop for creatives.
All sorts of workshopping.
That's what it's all about.
Lucky you had that lunch at Mona.
It was a damn good lunch. Good Tasmanian Pinot.
This is one of Tasmania's grand old dames. The architect was given a brief to design a garden room in the backyard. But little did they know, this project would actually have historical significance and really push some boundaries. Jack, what was your design brief?
Alan and Jill, the owners, have a large extended family and they love to be together.
Yep.
They asked for a dining space for about 12 or 14 of the family and allow them to enjoy the garden and look out at the Tamar Valley.
Wow. And what did you find when you got here?
Everything was beautifully restored, a lovely landscape, but there was a huge ivy tree covered in bees and had a small little turret poking out of the top of it. We found this old equipment. It's a gas generator. So you couldn't see any of the colour. It was all just brown dirt.
Wow.
And bird poo. The turret were weights like a grandfather clock that provided the pressure to force the gas into the house for lighting and cooking. And this was invented by a Tasmanian. This is one of only 3, the only one restored. It's in its current position, and it was built the same year, 1880.
There's a delicate relationship here between old and new. Architects are sometimes criticised for being ego-driven. In this project, it demonstrates the opposite. It's subservient, it's gentle, and it sits within its heritage context.
We've gathered a select group from Tasmania's property, building and design industry to count down the state's top 10 architectural statements for the year.
I think our landscape is so demanding. There's no excuse for crappy buildings. We've got to get it right.
Next is number 5.
First thing I love about this project As you come up these stairs, you don't really know what to expect. You get to this landing and wham! There's this fantastic bit of Tasmanian heritage architecture. But I know there's more in store for us than this. Hello, you must be Miranda and Ian.
Hi.
Yeah. You must be really happy here. It's beautiful.
Oh, we love it here.
Why don't you come on in and see what we've done to the place?
So this is now the new, unexpected, principal entrance to the house. It's a beautiful little statement. It sounds different, it's beautifully detailed, and even down to the floor mat and door handle, you really get a sense of the quality of this project.
Hi, mate.
G'day, how are you? Nice to see you, Ian.
Okay, so this is where the old house really started here. This was a brick wall that we cut away. In fact, this was actually the dunny here. You can still see some of the stud wall here.
I love the way this bridge is just working so beautifully between the old and the new and that overlap. Yeah, you can really get that sense, can't you?
Merges the two in together.
Yeah.
And you know, this is far from an original house, and here's one example of it. This is the 1850s part of the house, and this room here was added in 1920. You can really see how they've cut them in together there. And this room here was the old kitchen. You know, the oven was here. We had these beautiful old orange Laminex benches from 1975. Overall, it was a bit of a mess, and along the way, we found this old brick wall. We didn't actually know. It was completely covered up with plasterboard on both sides. And you can see these really lovely old handmade bricks. Here's a really good example of one.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. A convict brick right there with the arrow.
We actually wanted to just leave this wall as it was and varnish it. The painter got the wrong message. He started to paint it. No, stop. We just ended up with this lovely white frame around the outside, which is a nice touch.
Yeah, it works. It's great. Wow. This is really different, isn't it?
It is. It's great.
Yeah. So what was your brief to your architect?
What we wanted was a really modern space where we could cook and eat and live, and also be connected to the backyard and the garden.
Part of the design intent was to look at the old lean-to farmhouses and Tassie shacks, and you know, the old creosoted preserved timber that was used in those shacks, and that's part of the, you know, added to the contrast of old to new and make it relaxed.
So it's quite a contrast to the old house next door, if you like. But this really opens up into the garden, doesn't it?
It does open up, and it means we can see the river and the sailing boats.
Yeah, lovely.
And we can watch the kids playing and just really enjoy the backyard. I think it was really important to have the access to the view and also to the backyard.
Was the project daunting for you?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess there's a sense of responsibility in designing a building that didn't detract from the character and history of the existing house.
You're always going to get controversy when you're dealing with old meeting new. And this project is no exception. The success of it is really around the beauty of how the old meets the new. We've got the contrast in the materials, in the colours that are strong, that really work on the outside in, and the way it meets the ground. Everything that really is contrasting to the old. These things are the hallmark of really great architecture. So Miranda, are you happy with the result?
I love the result. Every day I get up and I look up the hallway and I wander up here, and it brings me joy.
Driving through the suburbs is like driving through a time machine, where you're seeing all manner of styles and shapes and sizes and people's tastes over decades. The home that we're heading to is very much about its time, 2016, and it's in stark contrast to what you might expect ordinarily in the suburbs. The first thing that strikes me about this project is you can't see the front door straight away. Instead, I'm greeted with this beautiful timber screen, and we're heading in towards the front door. We see a little snippet view of the garden, and then turning the corner to the front door, we see this lovely outdoor dining setting, extending its hospitality to us. It's really great. Hello.
Mike,
how are you?
Great to see you.
Nice to see you too. What an amazing place. Are you happy?
Very, very happy.
So why are they calling this the 5 Yards house?
Interesting question, because actually there are 4 courtyards. So each of them has its own story, and the 5th is the whole garden.
It's just a beautiful little sanctuary, this one.
It's like an oasis, isn't it, mate?
Oh, it is, absolutely, absolutely. Being in the private area of this part of the house, it's sort of not part of the rest of the common area, so to speak.
So the balance of the materials here are pretty restrained. We've got concrete and wood, and we've got a black ceiling. What's going on with that?
The black does it for us because you're not focusing on the ceiling, you're just looking outside. So the emphasis always is the colour outside, no colour inside, just a really natural palette. The clever part is there's a little strip of LED light that goes all the way through the house. So at night, because there's so much ambient light, that we actually only have the strip on and we live from all the light outside.
Yep.
So in the bathroom, for example, you see the bats and the birds flying.
The challenges in having the building built was first up sourcing the product, the SIPS system. We ended up getting it from Canada. Secondly was the builder. We went through 2 or 3 that just wouldn't touch it.
So why did you bother with it?
The client was interested in using a product or a system that was a little out there.
So what we have here is a cross-section of the SIPS system, where we're seeing either side of the same and a styrofoam running through the middle, which is giving this building amazing thermal performance.
This is our power bill for the last winter season, $207.02.
And how much of that was fixed charges?
$100.
So you're saying $100 over the winter period. Wow. This project is a really beautiful example of what collaboration can really do. An excellent client, a fantastic architect, and a really great builder working together to produce a really beautiful outcome. A great result, this one.
Next is the judge's pick for number 3, and Kim Rowan from Semintel was intrigued by this concrete creation.
Loved Denali House. Just from the first moment I saw it, the simplicity of it from an aesthetic. Obviously the engineering that had to go into it and the way that they've used the concrete and the timber and tried to meld that together. It is pretty much a pushing of the boundaries of engineering and building.
It's good to see the bush regenerating and houses going up after those terrible fires roared through here. I'm really looking forward to seeing this project because it's very much part of that story. So where was the original house, Stu?
It was a couple of 100 metres back up on the hill back. And on the day of the fire, actually, it was quite radical. All of those hills over there behind us were completely alight. And, you know, the family took everything that they could and ran down to that little rocky point over there.
Okay.
And looked back as the fire just tore through and burnt everything in its sight, including the house.
How terrifying.
It's interesting because in the aftermath, you know, there was this opportunity because the family used to look from their old house towards the point and often wonder, oh, it'd be great if we were further out towards the water and what could we do out there? And now we have this.
What a wild sight.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And like this fire that was sitting around back, it's just a lovely little piece of the fire, you know, the force, if you like, that transformed the site.
Yeah, that's really symbolic.
So the design time was around 11 months, including all the permits and drawings and so forth.
Yeah, and what about construction?
It was about 8 months. The modular way of building certainly sped some parts of it up, but then there's quite a bit of craftsmanship in the building in terms of getting all these elements to fit together and be really precise. The engineer did an amazing job. It is quite complex. It looks simple, but there's complexity in the engineering to get these horizontal planes floating and getting these precast panels in exactly the right position to hold them up, so it's quite critical. The building itself was about 2 things. It was firstly about recovery and secondly about doing something new. And so in terms of that recovery, I wanted to give to the clients something that was really peaceful, and that's why we actually pushed the building as far out as we could to the water so we could actually hear the waves
and the wind.
And the wind.
As an architect, I think this is a great project. The owners have been decisive and confident. They engaged an experienced architect and trusted him to deliver their brief. And this is the result.
Our select team of property, building and design industry leaders are counting down the top 10 architectural statements for the year in Tasmania.
I'm really excited about what architecture offers in Tassie. We've got an extraordinary natural environment here, an extraordinary climate. We really have a winter, we really have a summer, and architecture is presented with these amazing opportunities to respond to our climate, notwithstanding all the things that a client brings to the project. So the client is the real great enabler, and we've got architects here in Tassie doing marvellous work in a really competent way, and that's very exciting to see.
A space designed by an architect is usually very considered and it creates wonderful environments, space, light that are beneficial to our health and well-being.
Sam Intel has a strong emphasis on design, so Kim Rowan was particularly inspired by Number 2's creative approach.
I just think that this is another phenomenal project. The colouring of the timber and the steel, it just naturally blends into the environment. You just have magic. I think it works really well.
What I find so intriguing about this project is that it makes such a bold statement well before you get there. This is not your average cellar door.
Welcome to Devil's Corner.
Thank you for having us. Tell us about the brief you received from your client.
We reimagined how we could create a cellar door on this site, which is a fantastic site with the hazards behind us.
Yes.
One of the main drivers was to make a brand statement, a spiritual home as you would for their wine, in the middle of their vineyard. So it was really important to try and attract people into the site. And so as part of that, we built a big signpost.
Well, you certainly got our attention.
Yeah. This building really tries to capture different aspects of the landscape. This part of the lookout in particular is all about the sky. We wanted to try and focus people's attention on the purity of Tasmanian sky.
And this space is so focused and there are no other distractions, which is really beautiful.
Now let me take you up the lookout tower.
Wow, look at this spectacular view.
Well, part of the reason that works, Mike, is because as we've wound our way up the tower, you've had a chance to look over the vineyard, seen various aspects of the site, and then you're presented with this elevated view that's a little bit unexpected, and it's just all there in context.
Oh yeah, and so captivating. It's really beautiful.
We're at the Cellar Door now. We've collected a series of buildings around a courtyard to try and create a sheltered space that gets you away from the wind. Whereas on this side, we've got the amazing view of the hazards. So it's relating all of that back to the site and the origin of the wine.
There's a lot of different elements to this project, Peter. How did it all come together?
Mike, we were just really lucky to have a great client who was willing to work with us, who took a bit of a risk on a bold idea. We also had an excellent builder who worked through all the details with us. And I think it's that collaborative process that makes this a real success.
And now, number 1 in Tasmania. And for the judges, there was no doubt.
Yeah, it's fantastic what they've been able to do to get cabins like that there, way out in the south, one of the southernmost points of Australia.
We've got architects here in Tassie doing marvellous work at really fine scale to very large scale in a really competent way, and that's very exciting to see.
I think architects are pushing each other in the state, and I think we're creating wonderful buildings that push the brief and the budget as far as they can go, and that really creates wonderful buildings and spaces, and the general public are learning to engage with that and appreciate the value of having an architect.
Are you sure this is a number 1?
Yes.
Absolutely.
The Three Capes track is a 4-day walk along the coast of the Tasman Peninsula, with stops each night in the cabins. We're heading to the first one. It's called Surveyors.
Hi, Andrew.
Welcome to our office.
Great to be here. So tell me a bit more about the construction process, Andrew.
It's not your normal construction. We're
5 hours walk from the nearest road, and everything has to be slung under a helicopter to be brought in.
Yeah, the boys from Voss wouldn't want to have walked these in, would they?
I wouldn't have either. So if think of it like a big Meccano set. Windows, the doors, the wall.
And the windows, they're angled down. That's unusual.
Yeah, that's actually to minimise bird strike.
And because it's bolted together, does that mean it can all pull apart?
Yep, so in the event, say in 75 years' time, we want to remove the building, it can be all unbolted, again slung under a helicopter and flown back out again. You've got to remember, this isn't a hotel, it's a bushwalking cabin.
It must be well classed in terms of a walker's cabin.
Yeah, it is. We've had people from Canada and New Zealand, you know, marvel at how good they are. We've got hand pumps for the water.
A hand pump?
Yeah, our idea was that water's pretty precious, so we wanted people to work for the water. It's a magnificent place to be. It's sunny, it's protected from the winds, great outlook, and you've got a fantastic view of Cape Row.
Great, yeah, it's absolutely magnificent.
You wait till you see the next one, though.
Another interesting aspect about the design I've noticed is the deck. It connects us to everything. And around parts of the deck, they've used different screening methods to create a variety of spaces. One of the spaces is the kitchen area. They've used timber slats at the back that tell us not to look that way. It encourages us to look this way, at, well, this.
We can do that in a couple of bits because it'll be overlaid a bit, so you won't need to learn the whole.
So we've used a whole variety of materials. The timber, for example, is really interesting because it has to be bushfire resistant. It's really dense, which means it's also...
It's not going to burn.
Yeah, it's not going to burn, and it's also not going to weather a lot. It's going to be low maintenance.
I think this project has pushed the boundaries in three main ways, and it deserves to be number one. Firstly, the design process was a massive effort and took 4 years. Secondly, just the sheer logistics of the build. And thirdly, the result. A world-class facility that Tasmanians should be proud of.